everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ursula Marinelli, the chair of the Rotary Club of Newport's International Committee. Last spring, Lucky Levitt from the Rotary Club of Grants Pass reached out to clubs across the district asking if we'd consider helping to fund wells to provide water to a boarding school for orphans in Uganda. This school was being created by Hands for an African Child under the leadership of today's speaker, Brian Mathews. So before proposing to the board that we support this project, I met with Brian and Lucky and then reached out to the Rotary Club of Kampala in Uganda to be sure that there was local support for what Brian was proposing. We learned that the Kampala Club is fully supportive. In fact, they've taken on a hands-on approach and have paid for their own geological survey and performed 2 site visits. Plus, they meet with Brian regularly when he visits Uganda. In addition, they're committed to overseeing the drilling and the payment of the borehole for the well. The total cost of the well project is $12,000. The Grants Pass Club is contributing $3,250. The Newport Club's board met and voted to match that contribution. So we're also donating $3,250 to the project. And so judging from all of the visiting Rotarians here today, there appears to be interest in this project from other clubs as well. I've asked Lucky if she will go ahead and put her contact information in the chat for those of you who don't already know her, so that if you want to reach out directly regarding this support, you can do that. So now that you have the background of our involvement with Hands for an African Child, I will turn the floor over to Brian Mathews. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm actually a state farm agent and located in Folsom, California, and originally got hooked up by a friend of mine who's a retired state farm agent. So I've got Jay helping me from across the hall, and I'm going to turn on the PowerPoint and walk you through it. Uganda is a beautiful country. Everybody can see it okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. Uganda is a very beautiful country, but it's got a lot of challenges. And the pictures I'm going to show right now are actually people that are you would consider middle class. I mean, they've got a home with a yard, and the fact that there's no plants on the yard, that's their lawn. In other words, vegetation grows so easily over there, they actually scrape the dirt clean. So that's the way of showing that they're taking care of their property. There's a lot of poverty there. As a matter of fact, if you notice on the boy in this picture with the brown shirt, he's got a protunded stomach. So he's got, as does the one on the left with the purple shirt. Big deal about, it's not just diet, it's also water. And that's what the presentation is primarily about today. Water can cause, E. coli especially in the water, can cause a lot of different diseases. And this is one of the 10 poorest countries in the world, and it has an issue with water. There's no doubt about that. Often you will see these yellow jugs, people pulling water out of creeks, and even in this case right here, one day my driver told me that, let me get back to that screen. Thanks.
Use your backspace.
Well, I overdid it. Sorry, that's what Jay's here for, is to help me out. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, so you see the ditch on the right side of this gutter of the road on the right side. As I was there on my second trip, my friend said, you know, when it rains, they'll fill their water jugs up with water from those to save having to walk. And I said, there's no way. And the driver said, no, that's what people do. And sure enough, I was there a couple of trips later. It was raining heavily, and there were children filling up their water jugs from the drainage ditch on the side of the road. This particular creek is from a spring, and it's in Gulu, Uganda. I visited there one day. We actually did a well for a school up there, And we'll talk about more about that in a second. But I had an opportunity to actually videotape this woman filling her jug. And if you'll notice, when she puts her, even the kids did this, when they put their jug into the water, they make a circular motion to try and get the dirt floated on top away from the water. But ironically, the real dirt's in the water where you can't even see it. So that video is 2 minutes. That's just a quick shot of it. Then she walked out and walked away, and I got a picture of her catching at some distance. I zoomed in. That's 44 pounds. That's 20 liters of water. It's a 5-gallon jug, basically. So there's a lot of issues relating to water. I mean, they're ubiquitous. These jugs are everywhere. You see them at hardware stores. This is a hand-dug well. This was done at a small community college. It's 60 feet deep, and they were in the process of digging it. I visited there a couple of times. They actually had city water that's down near Kampala, but the water was so expensive, they decided to dig their own well. And what I thought was interesting about this picture is if you look closely inside the well, you'll see the little handholds. That's how the guy would ladder himself out. He would dig the ladder as he went. So he'd foothold and handhold in the side of the well. So this is the goal for a lot of people in Uganda, is to have water that comes from from a well, which is clean to drink. We own a 125-acre parcel, but before we bought that, we started in 2017. What we did is we actually had a donor that donated a manual drill, which I'll show you in a second. We provided bunk beds for orphanages over there, mosquito nets. We did some eyeglass events. We had this one school for the deaf where we bought eyeglasses for 12 students there, because if you can't hear, you certainly need your vision. And then we gave food and clothing away as well. It's called the village drill. It's actually manual, and it'll go to about 120 to 150 feet. You can go even beyond 150 feet if you have the 3-foot segments, the 1 meter segments that you add to bore deeper. On a drill rig, those are 10 feet. Those are 10-foot sections, 10 to 12. This is my wife's on the left-hand side of this picture. And on the right is a newly done well that they call them boreholes over there, that we did for a school, a remote school. Big problem in Uganda with orphans, and orphanages, frankly. Orphanages are illegal because people traffic children over there. And interesting fact about Uganda is according to the CIA, they have a fact book on every country. The average woman in Uganda has 6 children. And many of these women start out as teenagers, and they're not necessarily responsible, and they're maybe even raped, where they have a child, they don't know what to do with the child, they abandon the child. And because it's one of the 10 poorest countries in the world, they don't really have a strong safety net. So one of the places we visited was this Abanda Children's Home, baby's home, and they have, their niche is they have children under 3. So when the mother dies in childbirth, they actually will take the child until they're 3 years old. The father often visits, but sometimes is not able to. And some fathers do take their children at 3 and some don't. So then they have to find a home for them after that. This is one of the rooms. This is a Catholic, 2 Catholic sisters run this, and there's 36 children in various rooms, and this is the setup. We did bunk beds and mosquito nets for 2 or 3 of the orphanages. One of the ones that we did bunk beds for, I'll show you pictures in a second, was this one. And the kids were sleeping on the floor with no bedding, no blankets. So some had blankets, but most didn't. So Stella, who's pictured in this picture here, who's our lead there in the country, she's a remarkable woman. She visited there and she facilitated the whole process of the bunk beds, and then got us involved in drilling a well up there. And if you notice that building in the background, it's kind of a little tidbit. That was actually an Eagle Scout project from a boy in the United States. Him and his father came over and built that building for them. We've also visited this another orphanage we bought bunk beds for, and they have 30 children. This is a typical dormitory orphanage, which is the common orphanage there. And there's 30 to 40 kids sleeping in bunk beds, girls in one 30 to 40 bedroom, and the boys in another. And then there's usually an older woman like this. This is actually pretty remarkable because she's quite old, but she's usually an older woman that sleeps in the corner, and she's kind of in charge of 30 to 40 children. Lights out, lights on, don't fight, that kind of thing. It's not a real loving environment. It's not like they're getting nurtured, and they're just getting fed and educated. I put this picture in because it's their kitchen. So this is the day the bunk beds arrived. That's a picture. But the interesting thing about the kitchen is in Uganda, if you notice on the left side, you can see the smoke coming off. 80% of the food cooked in Uganda, as I would dare say probably Africa, is cooked over some type of fire, either charcoal produced from wood or just wood itself. We're modeling after a facility. It's called the New Hope Kasana's Children's Center. It's in Luwaro, Uganda, and their motto is Fathers for the Fatherless. And so they have mothers and fathers, and the children receive a quality education. They have property where they can grow their own crops. They're Christian-based, and they have an outreach to surrounding communities. And we're going to be doing all of these things. We've already started the outreach to the surrounding communities, and you'll see in a second, we've already started the food. We led with the food because the goal is to have them be self-sufficient for food. And we're going to have 200 orphans at our property. It's a community of homes. This is what the New Hope homes look like up in Luwero. Basically, the building in the center there is their family rooms where the kids would do their homework. They eat their meals there. And then the round buildings on the immediate left is a shower building. And then on the right, there's 4 of those buildings, and 2 are girls' bedrooms and 2 are boys. There's 4 to 5 that sleep in those rooms. And that's 25 years ago that they built this. And behind the family room center building there is a rectangular building. It's probably about 800 square feet. I poked my head inside there. It's where the parents with their biological children live. So they don't actually live as a family. We, on the other hand, are building 3,000 square foot, 6-bedroom homes where the biological children and the orphans will actually be raised all as one family. So that's our home. This is our master plan for the 125 acres. And we've just actually finished this last spring completion of the last parcel. It took over 2 years to get from start to finish on buying land. I won't bore you with the details, but we were in and out of escrow on 2 properties. Well, we were in and out of escrow on 1, and we passed on a second. So this was our 3rd pick. It's located 3 miles from the town of Bukamero. And since we bought the property, they've actually run power out on the street. This is the main street that goes past our property. It's a dirt road. It'll hold easily 2 cars. And you know, I've been out there. I'm coming up on my 17th trip in the last 5 years, and this road will get quite rutted during the rainy season. And then they send a crew out usually once a year with they call it marum, and it's a type of dirt that they build roads with there. It's got clay in it, and they'll repair the road. The nice thing about having electricity is that you have electricity. The bad news is it's only about half the time. It's only on about half the time. So Uganda is a poor country. They sell their electricity to Kenya. When Kenya has a need for power, Uganda readily sells their power and just turns it off for grids of the country. This is what the land looked like when we first purchased it. There was a lot of thorns and stickers. I made the mistake of wearing shorts the first time I went there because it's pretty humid there. It's on the equator, pretty warm. So this is what it looks like after it's been cleared and plowed. This is what it looks like now, largely. It actually looks better because we've even cleared more and more of the property. Here's the homes under construction. And we've got some drone footage that'll I'll intersperse in this. But I just want to point out this one picture. If you notice in that first house in the very foreground that's being roofed, there's men digging a hole on the backside, what would be the backside of the house. The lane's on the left side over there. You can see the concrete slabs for the houses that we've poured that we have. Actually, you'll see in the ones across the street now we're under construction on. We have 8 homes under construction right now, 2 pretty much done. They're getting the solar this January. We're bringing over the solar power for that and then buying panels locally. We're bringing over all the electronic things that we need. But the 2 men that are digging that hole are digging a water tank. So we right now have, we capture water off the roofs of the buildings and we store that in underground tanks. And we're hooking each home will have you'll see that in a few minutes, but each home has a water tower. And so we have a solar pump that we're hooking up to the house, and the solar panel will pump the water from the solar powered pump. Hope I said that right, up to the water tower, and they'll have water pressure for showers and toilets. This is a more recent view taken from a drone as well. And this is the very edge of the agricultural center. We have 10 buildings. We have a goat barn, a chicken barn. The chicken facility is 1,800 square feet. We have a 3,000 square foot main barn, which also has some housing for guests. We just built a guest house on top of a 90,000 gallon water tank. So we have the ability to store water, and ultimately, as this community fills out, at the very end, if you go right to the top of your picture there and you look at that, it's about, probably 500 yards from the last house. There's a small hill there. We have the ability to have water pressure for the whole community if we can get enough money together to build water tanks up on that hill. So what we would do is we'd take the water off the roofs and the water from the well, and we'd pump it up the street with solar pumps, and then we wouldn't need power to provide water to the houses because gravity would do it. And there's a gentle slope on this whole lot anyway, from that hill all the way down to the street, which is great. Okay. This, I believe, is a video. There we go. So our video is done by a guy that's a brand new drone guy, so it's a little choppy. But these are the first 4 houses on the left. The yellow building there is the barn that I told you about, the main barn. And there's a look at the agricultural center and then some of the land that we have under production. This is actually taken between seasons. So here's another look when the crops are actually in the ground. This is from my last couple of visits. I was over there, I went in late October and then again in December, and I'm going next week for my 3rd trip in 90 days, which I would not recommend. Each trip is, it's 25 to 30 hours to get there. And you're 10, in this case, with the time zone differences, it's 11 hours difference. Okay, with daylight savings time, sometimes only 10. No, it's not. Okay, so you'll see up the street there, the slabs. This is the new parcel on the right-hand side, on the right hand of that road there. You'll see it again that we just bought. This is we actually have, because our water's deeper than our drill can go. This is a 320-foot well that was done there a year ago, and unfortunately, the production was not enough. Probably could have gone deeper. We're going to go deeper this time. We've had it engineered both by the Rotary Club, and then we had Hearts and Hands for Humanity, which is an Oregon nonprofit from Oregon that they specialize in wells. They're actually running our drill right now, and they sent an engineer out for us as well. They have an engineering tool that's from Germany, and they both engineers concurred on one location. They didn't communicate with each other, so that's where we're going to drill our first well. If we have enough money, we're going to drill a second well down closer to the schools where that's going to be. And one of the advantages of doing it at the schools, having water available to the schools, is that a lot of girls especially, but a lot of students miss school because they have to haul water for their families. So if your school, which is going to be open to our community and some of the surrounding community, if your school has water, then the kids can bring their water jugs to the school in the morning, and they actually employ somebody, labor's about $2 a day there for a standard, average job. A guy will fill all the water jugs up. And then at the end of the day, the children can haul their water jug home. So they get to receive an education and they don't have to spend 1 to 2 hours hauling water. And it's amazing to see how young children are hauling those water jugs that weigh 40 pounds. It's just unbelievable to me. They even have a smaller size. I've seen kids as young as like 3 years old hauling water for their family. So here's a couple of short video clips I took with my phone of the drill. So the interesting thing about this is the drilling truck comes with another truck that has all the pipes. They call it, the term in the industry is drill string. That's what they call that pipe. And there's about a dozen workers that come with the truck. So there's the guy that runs the truck. He has a couple of assistants on the controls, and then they have an abundant amount of labor because it's $2 a day, and they feed the guys that work for them. So it's a good job because they're getting fed and paid. Uganda, good job. All right, here we go. Here's another clip. Notice that boy's probably about 15 years old. Okay, here's another shot of the houses. I have several of that in here. Each home's going to have 2 bedrooms for girls, 2 bedrooms for boys, a master bedroom for the parents, and then a 6th room, which can be a bedroom like a nursery for a new child. It could be where if you had a sick child, you could put a child there. If you had a guest, if you had extra children, you could put them there. For example, if the family has 4 or 5 children, they might need to have another bedroom of their own biological children, for their own biological children. So this is what we're all about. Okay, so I'm open to questions right now, and that's the end of my video presentation, my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Brian? While you're thinking of those, I'll just share. I think that really helps us, Brian, see the impact, see the videos, and especially the drone. I think that's really a nice element. We've got a drone operator in our club here, so we enjoy those when we get to see those or events that we've done. It captures that, and I think that's a big thing that we often forget to do is promote what we've done or boast about that, or share that, and then others get to see that. Just like we've got multiple clubs here, and others may not have seen that. So great job, Brian, and I appreciate you going over 3 trips in 90 days. Yeah, I can only imagine the jet lag that you'd be suffering there. So great on that. Okay, any other questions or comments for Brian here?
I have a question. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Thank you. Marissa Fink with the Roseburg Rotary Club. I applaud all of your work and the leadership you've given, Brian. Just awesome, amazing. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe a few stories about the responses that you've had from the people who live there, from these families? This is from what you showed us of their typical home. These are dramatically different. This is a major culture shift. And so I wonder how it's been received.
That's an excellent question. They call counties in Uganda districts. We call them counties in California. Some states call them parishes. But anyway, the county district leadership there is totally supportive of what we're doing. We're building, I mean, we're in an area that's a pretty impoverished area. The county buildings are brick buildings built, of course, by the government. And there are brick homes with a lot of them with handmade bricks. Our bricks are actually bricks that we make on the property with soil, cement, water, and sand, and they cure for 22 days. And they're interlocking bricks, and they don't need to be fired. That's one of the other things about Uganda is that they hand make their bricks and then they fire them, which adds a tremendous amount of pollution to the air there. So locally, we're doing very well. I've met 2 members of parliament there as well. The head of education in the country is the president's wife, and she is very, very insistent on picking up the quality of education in Uganda. So she had her husband appoint her as the Minister of Education, and that's made a big difference, I think. It's not perfect there by far, but I'll just share with you that on average in Uganda, 1/3 of the children do not go to elementary school, which they call primary school, and 2/3 don't go to secondary school, which we would call high school. So they have 1st through 7th grade and 8th through 12th are those 2 schools. Ursula, do you have a comment? No? Lucky, I mean. Sorry, Lucky. No, okay. Hang on, Jay had a comment.
So just how does your project help further the education or development of these kids?
So what we're doing is we're building a community primary school. We've already secured funding on that from the Harani Foundation, which is a foundation here in Sacramento that has provided over $200,000 towards our work so far. And we've got another, and that elementary school is going to have the capacity to pick up an extra 100 students that are not on our property. And then as our children mature, and we don't have children yet, I don't want to give the illusion that we have children. Children are coming in April. We're just finishing the first 4 homes. We'll have 8 done by the end of probably May. And we've already got 2 sets of parents though. So we've got to get the parents in, get them trained. One of the parents is a young couple that just had a baby, and the other couple has 4 children, and 2 of them are still at home. So we've got a younger couple and an older couple. And there's a lot of post-traumatic stress with having been an orphan. And these are double orphans. They're either totally abandoned children or both their parents died. In this area, ironically, there's a lot of AIDS still. But that's one of the outreach areas that we're going to work on, is trying to get the U.S. Embassy involved with more, and the Ugandan government involved more with this area, because I visited the U.S. Embassy about a year ago, and the person I talked to there was also working with the AIDS program. And she said that AIDS is curable. She goes, they don't advertise this, but the medicines available today will take HIV down to almost, it's so negligible in your blood that you're not communicable. So and this is a free drug in Uganda. So it's just ironic that you have people still dying of AIDS in a place where the cure is free. So one of the things that we're doing with the outreach program with clean water and teaching about sanitation, we already did a Days for Girls activity before COVID, where we gave away 250 girls feminine kits during their period. They're washable, and taught the girls about. We had a team of women from America, 2 of them from our board, our advisory board, that went over and they taught girls about their bodies and about sex and how to take care of themselves, and how diseases are communicable via sex and so forth. So we're all over stopping orphans from being created. In other words, let's not build a bunch of places for orphans. Let's stop parents from dying so that their kids aren't orphans. I mean, that's why we've already built a building with it's an 8-room building, but 2 of the rooms are for a health clinic, which we're going to have up and running here quickly, and then the remaining 6 are going to be guest rooms. So the guest rooms are going to be available for those that come and visit. So we're going to be encouraging doctors and dentists and farmers and school teachers to come over, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe for 2 months, and actually help us get this up off the ground. So social workers are actually a highly desired commodity because we have these parents are going to be dealing with these broken kids, and we're trying to restore their lives and restore the feeling of family to them and trust and educate them at the same time. So overall, though, the reaction has been very, very positive. We'd like to build more of these, actually, and Uganda has plenty of need. And we've been invited by one of the members of parliament to her area to build as well. So I hope that answers that question.
Brian, I see that Rob Thurston has a comment or a question.
Thank you, Lucky. Yeah, Brian, this is quite an interesting project, multifaceted and quite an undertaking. But referring just to the water piece that we're looking at today, one thing I really like is the fact that the water users, that is the kids and their families, all are in this community. They all get this water. Often with a school well, kids have water at school, they go home and they don't have water. So you don't get too far ahead of the curve. In this case, you have a contained community. My question really had to do with, how have you had the water quality checked for purity, and you have a process for maintaining that?
That's an excellent question. And we actually, one of the things that we have done is we've combined with a organization in El Dorado County. It's about 20 miles from where I am. And we have a partnership where they actually have a project where they work with chlorination of water in Kenya. And they have 72,000 people that they provide chlorine for their water. And I used to work for the Clorox company. And let me tell you, chlorine or bleach, the least expensive thing is the bleach in the bottle. The bottle costs more than the bleach. And you can actually manufacture bleach. We've talked about it. That's one of our long-term goals, is to be able to provide, not for free, but for a nominal cost, bleach, provide the first bottle, and then they'd come back and trade it, and we'd refill it. So it would be like, getting your milk was when we were kids. So we would like to get the whole surrounding community, whatever their water source is, we'd like to get them to understand that they can put a cap full of chlorine in their 5-gallon jerry can and let it sit for 30 minutes, and more if the water's got more turbidity. But that will largely kill all the E. coli diseases in that water. So we have the tests. We've had our water tested. I've drank that water myself. I shower with it when I'm there. We have the ability to filter that water if necessary. Right now, it's not necessary. So it's good quality water.
Any other questions or comments for Brian? Oh, there you go. Rotary Club of Roseburg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mimi Tunnell, and on behalf of our Rotary Club, I want to thank Brian for this awesome presentation. I want to thank John and everyone else that helped Brian and I, Brian Mahoney from our club, connect, and it's a joy to join you. Brian, my question to you is, what is the COVID status and the high risk that I'm guessing that you're taking?
Actually, there's a scale of COVID, and I was in when COVID first was coming out. In 2020. I went to Uganda in January and March, and while I was in Uganda, I received a text message from the executive secretary. Said, "Did you see the president's presentation tonight? Did you hear his speech tonight?" And I said, "No," and it was really close to midnight, and they were closing the airports in 2 days. Well, I was scheduled to fly out in 4 days. So I got out literally on the last KLM flight out of Uganda. That was a scheduled flight. I contacted my wife, and she got me on that plane on that Tuesday night, left at 11:30. So what they did then was very harsh. They pretty much prohibited everybody from even walking on the street. They totally shut down, commerce. taxi cabs, churches, bars, everything, schools. They haven't reopened the schools until this month. They're reopening. They probably this week, perhaps. So the schools in Uganda have been closed since March of 2020, which that's been a real problem. There was a lot of people. I'm sure there was people that were there was one guy that I read in a newspaper article was getting one meal a day, and he was just saying he'd rather be dead than what, this is a mature adult saying I'd rather die than have my stomach hurting as bad as it does all the time. So they paid a great price, but they're on the lowest scale for I'm safer going to Uganda. Everybody on the plane's been tested. They even test you again with a PCR test when you get off the plane at the airport. So it's a very safe country, ironically. It's remarkably.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. They just don't have a good healthcare system there. So wisely, they recognize that if they didn't do a very strong approach towards COVID, it could really have devastated that country, perhaps.
I think Brian is becoming very proficient in PCR testing by now.
Last time I got the test in Uganda on the way out, you have to have one within 24 hours of coming back to the United States. So this is at 11:30 at night, the night before the flight. I said to the guy, look, I've had many of these. Don't go too far up my nostril. And so the guy, he barely went up there at all. It was awesome. So yeah, so there's an advantage to talking to your tester, I guess.
Brian, what about the current project in the wells you're doing? Can you wrap in the current project that you've got going on with Rotary?
So Jay's question was?
Wrap in what you're currently doing with the district there and your current project.
Okay, perfect. So as mentioned in the beginning, Jimmy Sergio is the Rotary member that's working on this project. He's the international chairman for that Rotary Club of Kampala. And he is one of the founders of the main newspaper. He's one of the 4 founders of the main newspaper in Uganda 20, 30 years ago. So wonderful guy, well-educated, well-traveled, and very resourceful. He's already lined the truck up. I'm flying out next week, and the following week, the truck's going to be at the property. And logistically, we just have to get the money there. And if we have enough money, we're going to do a second set. We have enough for the first borehole, just about. And we're going to do a second one if we have a surge in donations so that we can get some economies of scale with drilling the second borehole at the same time, because you don't have to drive the truck 3 hours from Kampala up and so forth. So we're hoping to get 2 boreholes done at the same time. That's the goal.
And how much water does that bring? What's a well produce, Brian?
Boy, that's the unknown. For example, the well that we drilled last January probably would support 5 families, but it won't support 200, 300 people. We're going to have 200 orphans and altogether 350 to 400 people on this property. And then we're going to have the school that we want to support the kids that come to the school, from neighboring communities as well that are not able to go to school. And what New Hope does, which is brilliant, is they will place children that need to have a home. They'll place them in neighboring people's homes and provide a bed for them, a bicycle for transportation to get to school, and they'll allow that child to come then to school for free at the school. So
your ultimate goal for number of wells?
We don't know. It depends on the output per well, but we've always thought we were going to have multiple wells. That's always been the plan. We're big on water storage. There's a lot of rain 2 times a year in this area. And we want to continue to build water storage because you can filter water, you can chlorinate water, water can be drinkable even if it's muddy in the beginning. So it's very easy to make that happen. Okay.
No,
All right, Brian. Yeah,
aren't you
go ahead.
going to have to have water for the animals as well, at least for a part of the year? And can't they be subject to dysentery
Yeah, we do.
and other diseases? So that'll add on to it.
Say that again, Sylvia, you broke up.
I was saying, just having water for the animals at least part of the year too, when they have their dry season.
Yeah. each one of the animal barns we have right now, the piggery has two water tanks where they catch the water and it goes right into two 5,000 liter tanks. They have the same capture program for the chickens. We have the 90,000 gallon water tank is right there in the center of the agricultural community, so we can draw water from there. I'm getting an internet connection is unstable. I hope you guys can hear me all right. The reality is that we have the ability ourselves to go fetch water. We have two tractors. So if we came into a crisis situation, we could go down to the natural springs, which are about 2 miles away, a mile and a half away, and we could actually use our pump with our generator and pump water into a portable tank that we bought. That basically it's a pallet. It's a square rectangular pallet that Coke and Pepsi used to ship their base that they make Coca-Cola with, and then they sell those afterwards. So we bought several of those, and we've used them for construction. And you can actually even buy water from a water truck. There's been months where we've done that during dry months because construction takes a lot of water. So it's expensive, but you can. We have to make our own concrete on site because we're so remote that a cement truck, there's a couple of companies in Kampala that sell cement, but we're too far away for them that sell concrete. So we make our own concrete. That answer your question, Sylvia? Okay. All right, I think we're probably wrapping up here. Lucky, would you agree with me on that?
All right, I just want to share, Brian, thank you for that presentation. And what we do as our club is as a small token of appreciation is we pay the cost to vaccinate 50 children against polio. So in your name, that will be done. And we'd also like to do it for your IT person or your backup. So we're going to do 2 bouts or 100 kids worth. So thank you for him for sharing on that. So great presentation. It really makes it tangible. It really makes it understandable of what's happening and how, to support it. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the clubs and all the members coming in and joining our meeting, and appreciate that. Now